Afternoon, everyone. I'm Stacey Van Dyke. Today, President Biden said Russian President Vladimir Putin is a war criminal, and he laid out his administration's plan to send additional aid for Ukraine's defense. It came just hours after Ukraine's President Zelensky made a compelling call to Congress and the U.S. for more help. Natalie Brand has the latest from the White House.
Before a receptive Congress, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made an emotional and powerful plea for even stronger sanctions on Russia and help defending Ukraine's skies.
We are fighting for the values of Europe and the world, sacrificing our lives in the name of the future.
Zelensky showed a hard-to-watch video depicting the devastation to his country while attacks continued in real time. Russian forces targeted people waiting in a bread line in Chernihiv. President Zelensky ended his remarks with a direct appeal to President Biden.
I wish you to be the leader of the world. Being the leader of the world means to be the leader of peace.
Wednesday afternoon, the president detailed $800 million in new security assistance to Ukraine, which will include anti-aircraft systems, small arms, and specialized drones.
The United States and our allies and partners are fully committed to surging weapons of assistance to the Ukrainians, and more will be coming.
The Biden administration and bipartisan members of Congress agree that creating a no-fly zone would be escalatory, but lawmakers are calling on the White House to provide even more direct defense support.
I support enthusiastically the sending of MiG aircraft from Poland to the Ukrainian Air Force so they can be more competitive in the skies.
Congressional leaders received a classified briefing on the crisis Wednesday afternoon. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, the White House.
The White House says National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan spoke with his Russian counterpart today, warning of consequences should Russia decide to use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine. Russian and Ukrainian officials have signaled progress toward a possible compromise in ongoing peace talks, though Putin still says his military operation is going according to plan. President Biden is also demanding a faster drop in gas prices. He took to Twitter to call out the tendency for gas prices to go up like a rocket when oil spikes, but only drop like a feather when crude crashes. Other leaders in Washington are also taking up the cause, calling for an investigation into oil producers.
In the coming weeks, I expect that Congress will be calling on CEOs from the oil and gas companies to testify on the alarming spike in energy prices. Over the past few days, oil prices have actually been decreasing, but the price of gas at the pump has not.
Gas prices skyrocketed to record highs last week after a spike in crude oil to levels unseen since 2008. Prices at the pump are going down, but only a penny or two at a time this week, despite Brent oil collapsing by 28% over the last week. Consumer inflation jumped 7.9% over the past year. In Grand Forks, 2 men are behind bars after a canine tracked them down after a burglary. Police say a homeowner in the 800 block of Stanford Road near UND called them around 7 last night after finding 2 burglars in their home. The suspects ran, but a canine was able to track them to a nearby apartment building. 20-year-old Jacob Lawson and 18-year-old Colin Edwards, both of Grand Forks, were each charged with 1 count of burglary. Edwards was also charged with possession of marijuana and paraphernalia. A teenager was in critical condition after a pickup crashed into his snowmobile. Minnesota State Patrol says that happened just after 6 p.m. Monday. The 14-year-old from Plummer, Minnesota, attempted to cross Highway 59 in Red Lake County when it was hit by a Chevy Silverado. The boy was wearing a helmet, but he had to be airlifted to the hospital and is being treated for life-threatening injuries. The driver of the truck wasn't hurt. New for you at 4, firefighters near Indianapolis are battling a huge blaze at a Walmart distribution center. Take a look as a thick plume of smoke comes from the warehouse. Fire erupted at the distribution center just before noon. First responders arrived to find the building completely engulfed in flames. 1,000 employees who work at that distribution center got out safely and are accounted for.
They do have some associates here that I think attempted to put the fire out, but they said it was well involved by the time they got to it and pretty deep into the storage components and stuff, and they just weren't unable to access it.
People living in the area are being warned to keep windows closed due to air quality. Officials haven't figured out yet how that fire started. A heartbreaking story out of Texas. 9 people died when a van carrying the golf teams from the University of Southwest collided with a pickup truck.
It was transporting the men's and women's golf team from a golf tournament here in the West Texas area.
The fiery crash happened on a 2-lane road in West Texas last night. 6 students and a faculty member from the University of the Southwest were killed. 2 students are hospitalized with critical injuries. Texas authorities say the pickup crossed the center line and slammed into the team van. Both vehicles then burst into flames. The driver of the pickup and a passenger also died. The crash happened in the same area where 3 people were killed in November when a pickup truck crashed into a school bus carrying members of a high school band. The NTB is sending a team to aid in the investigation. Hutch joins us now with a first look at our forecast. Hutch?
Stacey, thanks so much, and a good afternoon, everyone. As we head through our day, it's another warm one out there. We're melting a lot of snow, many of us seeing 50s, and we're seeing more bare earth underneath the snow out there. Thanks to our friends at Dakota Magic for providing this awesome view. Now, as we take a look at those temperatures, we have 52 degrees in Fargo, Moorhead, and in Oaks, and the temperatures up north warming to 44 in Grand Forks. Your first 40 or better degree day since December 1st. 44 as well in Thief River and near 50 in Lakes Country as the melting continues. Most of the clouds are well up to the north and off to the east of us. It looks fairly quiet for the early evening, but we do have a couple of concerns as we go through the overnight hours. By morning, some of us could see some patchy, dense fog, but this evening looks dandy. Temperatures staying in the 30s. Wind has more of a northerly component, so we will cool off to below freezing, which means any wet roads and sidewalks could certainly become icy. So keep that in mind. Now we'll have details on what you can expect on our nice, warm, spring-like weather trend here as we glide towards your weekend and beyond. It looks like some changes back to maybe some wintry conditions. We'll have all those facts here in a few moments.
Don't say it. Don't ruin the day, Hutch. All right, thanks. A powerful 7.3 magnitude earthquake just struck off the coast of northern Japan, triggering a tsunami advisory and plunging more than 2 million homes in the Tokyo area into darkness. The same region was devastated by a deadly quake and tsunami 11 years ago that also caused nuclear plant meltdowns. Authorities say there have been reports of fire, damage to buildings, and falling rocks, and authorities are scrambling to assess damage. No word yet on any casualties. President Biden is marking the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. At the White House this afternoon, the president walked in with Ruth Glenn, the president and CEO of the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. The reauthorization took 5 years, and the president said he and other advocates worked against a stigma over domestic violence to get to this moment. Well, just as Americans are taking off their masks, a new COVID variant is now spreading, causing cases to rise around the world. CBS's Riley Carlson has this story from London.
Self-isolation, mass testing, and lockdowns. China is facing its worst outbreak since Wuhan 2 years ago, with more than 10,000 COVID cases reported this month. And it comes just as many countries are ditching restrictions.
We're ready to welcome the world back.
And now dealing with a new subvariant of the virus, BA2 is 30% more transmissible than Omicron, but it doesn't seem to be more severe. It could be why nearly half of European countries have seen cases rise. Almost 3 weeks after the UK dropped its last COVID rules, cases have spiked more than 50%, and hospitalizations are up too. Hospital workers in Ukraine find themselves on 2 front lines, fighting the virus in intensive care units as the war rages outside. With refugees flooding out in cramped spaces, concern about outbreaks is growing. Fewer than 35% of Ukrainians are fully vaccinated.
I don't want to say it's not as serious anymore. It's has been overpowered by war situation.
At the borders, there's no COVID testing. The virus has taken a back seat to survival. Riley Carlson, CBS News, London.
The BA2 variant now makes up nearly a quarter of new infections among Americans, but daily cases and hospitalizations here in the U.S. continue to drop. Thanks to a generous donation from a Minnesota family, life-saving carbon monoxide detectors are going to be available for free to people who need them. Churches United was recently given 200 detectors for homes in the Fargo-Moorhead area. Distribution will begin as early as next week at both Dorothy Day Food Pantry locations. William and Alex Shirk donate the detectors to nonprofits all over Minnesota in memory of their son and cousin who died of carbon monoxide poisoning. Well, after last year's drought, we'll tell you why Minnesotans who make maple syrup say now is go time to tap the trees.
I want to show you something kind of fun here. The visible satellite imagery showing those clouds in motion, but the stuff not in motion here, those are the snowbanks that have been melting away in earnest southeast North Dakota. A lot of bare earth here. This explains your 50 to 60 degree weather in this area. Sliding over into Lakes Country and beyond, we can see the icy Red Lakes area, snow on the ground through much of Lakes Country. Well, details in your forecast. Join me. Weather is next.